Have you ever felt like doing the right thing is supposed to be its own reward, but then found yourself wondering why it still feels so hard to do the right thing alone? Well, the stories we're going to look at tonight might help explain why it's so much easier to work together. Welcome to Mythologizing the Bible, where we'll be taking a look at 3 readings from the Christian Bible through the lens of sacred myth. As we reflect on the readings for the 17th Sunday in Ordinary Time, we'll explore how myths about justice, forgiveness, and fresh starts can still teach us something deeply human, especially when we stop waiting on divine approval and start relying on each other. So in this episode, we're asking, what happens when we stop treating goodness as a transaction and start living our values in community? Together. Because the truth is, courage, compassion, and second chances aren't solo acts. They're built on relationships, on connection, and yes, on the simple but powerful act of asking for help. So grab a comfy seat, a glass of your favorite beverage, and let's look at some ancient stories together in this edition of Mythologizing the Bible, where we'll be exploring the readings for the 17th Sunday in Ordinary Time, Cycle C of the Roman Catholic Lectionary. In this series, we're exploring readings from the Bible through the lens of sacred myth, looking for interpretations and lessons that don't demand a belief in the supernatural. And what that means from a practical standpoint is that we will assume that these stories and writings are fiction, written by pre-scientific people with their own agendas and different audiences. Now, you might agree with the lessons I find, but I encourage you to look for something that rings true to you. Part of the beauty of understanding these writings as sacred myths is that we're free to interpret them for ourselves. We're free to learn the lessons that we need right now. So with that, let's dive in. As I said, tonight we'll be looking at the readings for the 17th Sunday in Ordinary Time, Cycle C. Our first reading is from the book of Genesis. It's chapter 18, verses 20 through 32. Our second reading is from the letter to the Colossians. It's chapter 2, verses 12 through 14. And our gospel reading is from Luke. It's chapter 11, verses 1 through 13. Now we'll start by going through all 3 of the readings, then we'll look for the messages and the main lesson in each one. Finally, we'll bring everything together, look at what it means for us today, and talk about where we go from here. So with that, let's begin. Our first reading is from Genesis. Then the Lord said, "The outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is so great, and their sin so grievous, that I will go down and see if what they have done is as bad as the outcry that has reached me. If not, I will know." The men turned away and went toward Sodom, but Abraham remained standing before the Lord. Then Abraham approached him and said, "Will you sweep away the righteous with the wicked? What if there are 50 righteous people in the city? Will you really sweep it away and not spare the place for the sake of the 50 righteous people in it? Far be it from you to do such a thing, to kill the righteous with the wicked, treating the righteous and the wicked alike. Far be it from you. Will not the judge of all the earth do right?" The Lord said, "If I find 50 righteous people in the city of Sodom, I will spare the whole place for their sake." Then Abram spoke up again. "Now that I have been so bold as to speak to the Lord, though I am nothing but dust and ashes, what if the number of the righteous is 5 less than 50? Will you destroy the whole city for lack of 5 people? If I find 45 there," he said, "I will not destroy it." Once again he spoke to him. "What if only 40 are found there?" He said, "For the sake of 40 I will not do it." Then he said, "May the Lord not be angry, but let me speak. What if only 30 can be found there? He answered, I will not do it if I find 30 there. Abraham said, Now that I have been so bold as to speak to the Lord, what if only 20 can be found there? He said, For the sake of the 20 I will not destroy it. Then he said, May the Lord not be angry, but let me speak just once more. What if only 10 can be found there? He answered, For the sake of 10 I will not destroy it. Our second reading is from the letter to the Colossians. Brothers and sisters, having been buried with him in baptism, in which you were also raised with him through your faith in the working of God, who raised him from the dead. When you were dead in your sins and in the uncircumcision of your flesh, God made you alive with Christ. He forgave us all our sins, having canceled the charge of our legal indebtedness, which stood against us and condemned us. He has taken it away, nailing it to the cross. And our gospel reading is from Luke. One day Jesus was praying in a certain place. When he finished, one of his disciples said to him, Lord, teach us to pray, just as John taught his disciples. He said to them, When you pray, say, Father, hallowed be your name, your kingdom come. Give us each day our daily bread. Forgive us our sins, for we also forgive everyone who sins against us. And lead us not into temptation. Then Jesus said to them, Suppose you have a friend, and you go to him at midnight and say, Friend, lend me 3 loaves of bread. A friend of mine on a journey has come to me, and I have no food to offer him. And suppose the one inside answers, Don't bother me. The door is already locked, and my children and I are in bed. I can't get up and give you anything. I tell you, even though he will not get up and give you the bread because of friendship, yet because of your shameless audacity, he will surely get up and give you as much as you need. So I say to you, ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and the door will be opened to you. For everyone who asks receives. The one who seeks finds, and to the one who knocks, the door will be opened. Which of you fathers, if your son asks for a fish, will give him a snake instead? Or if he asks for an egg, will give him a scorpion? If you then, though you are evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father in heaven give the Holy Spirit to those who ask him? All right, so let's go back and take a critical look at these readings and see what learnings and lessons we can find if we dig around just a little bit. So our first reading was from the book of Genesis, and in this strange little scene, Abraham negotiates with God like a skilled diplomat, one who's trying to talk his boss out of making a horrible mistake. And frankly, it's kind of bizarre. Why does the all-knowing, all-just God need to go down and see if the cities are as bad as he's heard? Right? This moment strips away the usual image of an infallible deity and shows us something else. A powerful figure making assumptions and planning destruction until someone has the courage to step up and question it. Abraham doesn't scream or rebel. He calmly asks some pointed questions. In the story, he basically nudges God toward compassion and justice. And that right there is the universal lesson. Whether or not we believe in God isn't the point here. The story puts a spotlight on something that's really deeply human. Our ability, our responsibility to challenge harmful decisions, even when they come from people or institutions we're supposed to trust and respect. It's easy to criticize injustice from a distance. But what do we do when the injustice is being carried out by someone we know, or someone in power, or someone who claims to be doing it in the name of God? Abraham models an important path forward. Ask the hard questions. Keep asking them. Stand firm, but don't be cruel or obnoxious. Hold power accountable without becoming the monster you're standing up against. And let's also appreciate how Abraham goes about it. He doesn't accuse, he doesn't threaten or go into a rage, doesn't throw a tantrum. He just appeals to shared values. What if there are 50 innocent people? Or 45, or 40, or 30, or 10? He's not just making a deal, he's teaching through questions. That's often a more effective way to help someone change their own mind. Don't tell them they're wrong. Help them realize it themselves. That takes patience, takes humility, and it can take a heck of a lot of courage. But it's something each of us can practice, especially when speaking up feels risky. So the main lesson I got from our first reading is that we must stand up to injustice, no matter the source. At its heart, this myth is telling us something radical. Even divine power must be questioned when justice is on the line. It's never enough to stay quiet and hope for the best. We have to speak up. We have to stand firm, and we have to use our voices to push for what's right. Whether we're confronting systems, leaders, or our own internal fears, the call is the same. Have the courage to challenge injustice, no matter where it comes from. We must stand up to injustice, no matter the source. Our second reading was from Paul's letter to the Colossians, and this reading was loaded with supernatural imagery, being buried with Christ, raised through faith, debts canceled, sins erased. That's a lot to unpack, especially if you're looking for something meaningful outside of a strictly religious framework. But if we peel back the mystical layers here, there is a deeply human concept underneath. It's the desire to leave behind what no longer serves us and sort of step into a better version of ourselves. Paul paints this as a radical restart, a clean slate. That idea, it goes well beyond religion. We all reach points in life where we wish we could just start over, let go of our regrets and walk forward without all the baggage. Early Christian baptism, especially the full immersion kind, it wasn't just about belief. It was a visceral, physical experience. Being dunked underwater, held there for a bit, and then gasping for air back at the surface. That's not subtle. It feels like something real has happened. And it's that kind of embodied experience. It's symbolic, meaningful, maybe even a bit uncomfortable. It's that kind of embodied experience that can mark a turning point. Secular traditions have these too. Recovery milestones, name changes, graduation ceremonies, sometimes just apologies accepted, or letters that are burned, or bridges that are built. The important thing is that we recognize and honor any of these moments, right? These moments when someone chooses to grow, to change, or to start again. What Paul ties to faith, we can tie to compassion. Because letting people start fresh doesn't require divine intervention. It just takes human decency. We all mess up. We all fall short at times. But if we create space for transformation, real, honest, personal transformation, then we're doing the sacred work of grace without needing to invoke the supernatural. Whether it's through ritual, conversation, symbolic gestures, we can offer each other the same opportunity this reading points to, which is the chance to begin again unburdened. So the main lesson I got from our second reading is that we need powerful but secular ways to give people a fresh start. The beauty of this message isn't in the magic. It's in the meaning. People grow. People change. And sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is witness that change and then say, yes, you can start over. So let's build communities and relationships where forgiveness is possible, where growth is celebrated, and fresh starts don't need divine permission. We need powerful but secular ways to give people a fresh start. Okay, our final reading was from the Gospel of Luke. And on the surface, this passage seems to be all about prayer, the Lord's Prayer, and then a midnight bread run and a motivational message about asking, seeking, and knocking, which alludes to prayer. But if we step outside the religious framing for a moment, a deeper, again, more human lesson starts to emerge, especially when we stop waiting for divine intervention and start looking at each other. And Jesus may have framed the parable in spiritual terms, but the practical advice still holds. If you need something, ask. Not silently, not shamefully. Ask. Because we all have moments when we're out of bread, literally or metaphorically, and someone else might just have what we need. The idea of persistence in the story isn't about manipulating the divine. It's about courage and community. Now, too often, we're taught that needing help is a weakness, or that asking makes us a burden. But when we refuse to ask, remember, we rob others of the chance to show up. We isolate ourselves. And we quietly reinforce the toxic myth that strong people go it alone. The truth is, resilience usually begins with connection. And connection requires at least a little bit of vulnerability. Whether it's emotional support, a ride to work, or help with organizing for a justice project or something in our neighborhoods. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is knock on someone's door and say, I can't do this by myself. Will you help? What if we stopped spiritualizing help and started normalizing it? What if we created a culture where asking for assistance was as natural as offering it? The world doesn't need more silent sufferers waiting on invisible solutions. It needs people who are willing to speak up and people who are ready to listen. If the door isn't opening, maybe it's not a lack of faith. Maybe we're just knocking on the wrong door. Anyway, the main lesson I got from our gospel reading is that we must be willing to ask for help. There is no shame in needing help. In fact, it's one of the most unifying truths of being human. We all need someone sometime. So let's drop the pride, ditch the rugged individualism, and ask for help when we need it. And of course, respond when others do the same. That's how we build real community, not by simply providing help, but by modeling that it's good to ask for help in the first place. We must be willing to ask for help. All right, let's review the lessons we've talked about so far. In our first reading from Genesis, the main lesson I came away with was we must stand up to injustice no matter the source. In our second reading from Colossians, the main lesson I got was we need powerful but secular ways to give people a fresh start. And finally, the main lesson I got from our gospel reading was we must be willing to ask for help. It's one thing to believe in justice and fresh starts. It's another thing entirely to live like we actually mean it. Speaking up against injustice takes courage, but it also takes community. Forgiving others, creating space for them to grow, and offering second chances, that's not a solo act either. None of us can take on the world alone, and we're not meant to. If we want to make a real difference, if we want to create a world that's fair and compassionate, we have to be honest about our own limits. We have to ask for help when we need it. And we have to invite others into the work. The simple fact is we're stronger when we challenge injustice together. We're more generous when we offer fresh starts together. And we're so much more human when we admit that we can't do it all alone. So let's step back and take another look at these readings overall and see if we can figure out what these lessons really mean to us in our daily lives. To do this, I'll try to answer two questions. So what? And now what? Okay, so what? Why should we care about any of this? Well, we should care about this because injustice doesn't fix itself. Systems that harm people, whether it's cruel immigration enforcement, voter disenfranchisement, or economic exclusion, harmful systems don't magically become fair just because we hope they will. If we want justice, we have to demand it. Pretty loudly, definitely consistently, and we have to demand it together. That means getting informed, speaking up, and pushing back when the system is wrong, or when the people who claim authority get it wrong. This is important because people deserve fresh starts, and we're often the ones who block them. For example, when someone has served their criminal sentence, they should get to rebuild their life. Period. But we keep punishing them, labeling them as criminals forever, denying them jobs, housing, even the right to vote. If we actually believe in redemption, if people who claim to be Christians actually believe in redemption, we all have to make space for it. Not just in our rhetoric, but in our hearts and definitely in our laws. We should care about this because Christian nationalism is hijacking the moral narrative. There are too many people out there cheering cruelty while waving their Trump Bibles. They claim to speak for all Christians, but their actions contradict the sacred myths they claim to follow. If you're someone who still sees value in Christian ethics, things like compassion, care, and humility, then you have to speak up. Silence doesn't protect your faith. Silence surrenders it. This is important because we're not meant to do any of this alone. The work of justice, healing, and building community it's hard work. It's difficult. It's a heavy load. But it gets lighter when we carry it together. You don't need to know everything. You don't have to lead every charge, but you do need to show up, speak up, and then link arms with the people who are trying to make things right. If more of us ask for help, offer it freely, and stay in the work together, we'll show everyone what humanity really looks like. It's not about being perfect. It's about being human together. All right, the last question I try to answer is, now what? What are we supposed to do? Where do we go from here? Well, sometimes the hardest part of doing the right thing isn't knowing what needs to be done. It's admitting we can't do it alone. Whether we're talking about standing up to injustice, helping someone rebuild their life, or pushing back against toxic systems, we tend to put pressure on ourselves to handle it all solo. But the truth is, this work requires community. So with that in mind, here's your challenge for the week. Think of something you've been trying to do on your own, or something important that's been weighing on your mind, and ask someone to help with it. Maybe it's something big like organizing a community project or speaking out about an issue. Or maybe it's something simple like needing help writing a letter, or watching the kids, or making a tough decision. Whatever it is, pick one thing and ask someone you trust to join you in it. Let them share the load. This matters because asking for help is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of wisdom. We all have blind spots. There are limits to our time and energy, and there are moments when we're overwhelmed. By asking for help, we not only get the support we need, but we also create space for deeper connection, for mutual trust, and even shared accountability. It reminds us that we're not supposed to carry every burden alone. That's not how a good life works. Back in August of 2019, I was tapped to lead a brand new branch within the office of the CIO at the Department of Labor. The idea was to launch an IT quality management branch focused on lean IT initiatives and process improvement. It was a challenge I was pretty excited about. Just 2 weeks into that, the CIO came to me with a bit of a curveball. Change of plans, he said. The deputy secretary wants us to take on Section 508, so I need you to put quality management on hold and stand up a 508 program office. I said, sure, I can do that. Just one question. 50 what? He laughed. He thought I was kidding. I wasn't. I had heard of Section 508, sure, but I didn't really know what it involved. He finally chuckled and said, exactly, that's why we need a DOL-wide 508 program office. So I asked, okay, one more thing. What does stand up a 508 program office actually mean? What's the target state? How will I know if I've succeeded? The CIO paused, thought about it, and then shrugged a little. I'm not exactly sure. Come back to me in 2 weeks with the definition of our target state. Then he walked out. So there I was, with almost no knowledge of Section 508, 0 written requirements, and a 2-week deadline to define success for the entire department. I could have panicked. Instead, I started doing the one thing I did know how to do. I asked for help. Now, just as an aside, if you don't know what Section 508 is, Section 508 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 requires all federal agencies to ensure that their ICT, their information and communication technology, is comparable in access for people who have disabilities. And so you have to make it accessible. That's what it's about. Now, I didn't even really fully understand that at the time. So I reached out to colleagues who had worked with 508, and they connected me with others. I scoured online resources. I called in favors. I tracked down experts in other agencies. And you know what? Everyone helped. Every single person I asked gave me something. Information, advice, context, best strategies, best practices, or even just encouragement. I combined all of that with my own background in strategy and process design, and pretty soon a solid picture began to form. So 2 weeks later, I walked into the CIO's office with a clear, measurable vision. I said, within 1 year, our program office will help DOL reach the measured level of maturity in all 5 domains of the OMB Section 508 maturity model. I'm not going to go into details and explain to you what that is, but trust me, it was ambitious, very ambitious, but not impossible. And then we kept asking for help. We kept refining the approach. We kept the momentum going. The CIO said, hey, that sounds great. Keep it up. And we kept working on it. And 9 months later, not a year that I had originally targeted, 9 months later, we hit that goal. And that same year, I was honored as one of the Fed 100, recognized as one of the top 100 federal IT leaders across government because of the work that I did standing up the 508 program office. But the thing is, I didn't do that alone. I couldn't have done it without all the help that I received. But I wouldn't have received all that help if I hadn't asked. Right? That's the thing. That never would have happened if I hadn't been willing to say, I don't know, but I'll find out. I'll ask for help. None of it would have come together if I hadn't asked for help early, often, and frankly, completely without apology. That experience didn't just change my career. It helped to reshape the way I think about leadership, service, and even community. You don't have to have all the answers. You just have to be willing to ask. And remember that asking for help doesn't just help you. Modeling this kind of vulnerability gives others permission to do the same. When we stop pretending we've got it all handled, we make it easier for others to step up, to speak up and work alongside of us. And that's how real, sustainable change begins. So go ahead and ask for help. Let someone show up for you. That simple act might be exactly what both of you need. Well, before I wrap things up, I'd like to leave you with one more thought. American television host and author Fred Rogers once said, "You can't truly help people unless you're willing to be helped yourself." Yes, I'm using another Mr. Rogers quote. How can you talk about helping and not think about Fred Rogers? I mean, that's how most people remember Mr. Rogers, as someone who helped others, a gentle guide, a calm voice. He was a compassionate presence. But Fred Rogers understood something very important, that real help only flows freely in a world where it's okay to receive and not just give help. When he said, you can't truly help people unless you're willing to be helped yourself, he wasn't just talking about kindness. He was talking about things like humility, vulnerability, and the connection that's involved. So, so often we assume asking for help makes us look weak or makes us look incapable. We tell ourselves, we'll figure it out, I'll just power through. Or we're willing to suffer in silence rather than risk being a burden. But if everyone thinks that way, who's ever allowed to step up and say, I've got you? We rob others of the opportunity to show up for us. And even worse, we set the example that it's not okay to need a little help, which makes it harder for them to ask for help when they're the ones struggling. This week's challenge to ask for help with something you've been carrying alone isn't just about making your own life easier. It's about practicing the very thing we so often encourage in others. It's about demonstrating to the people around us that asking for help is not a failure. Asking for help is an act of trust, and it's an act of courage, even leadership. And it might just be the invitation someone else needs to let them ask for help too. So let's take these words from Mr. Rogers to heart. You can't truly help people unless you're willing to be helped yourself. If we want to build a kinder, more supportive world, we've got to start by being honest about our own needs. That's how we model the kind of community we're trying to create. One where offering help and accepting it are both seen as strengths. All right, we've come to the end of this episode. Thanks for joining me. I'll be back again next week, but in the meantime, I encourage you to engage with our challenge for the week and pay attention to the important lessons you come across wherever you find them. You'll create a more purposeful and joyful life, and you'll start to feel more connected to the world and the people around you. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Mythologizing the Bible as we did a deeper dive into the readings for the 17th Sunday in Ordinary Time, Cycle C of the Roman Catholic Lectionary. Remember that we are so much more human when we admit that we can't do it all alone. The Bible readings used for this episode are from the Holy Bible, New International Version, NIV, copyright 1973, 1978, 1984, and 2011 by Biblica Inc., used by permission, all rights reserved worldwide. Thank you for listening. If you like this content, please consider telling a friend about it. The more people who hear the positive messages I'm sharing, the better. Mythologizing the Bible is a live-streamed series held most Thursdays at 9 p.m. Eastern Time on twitch.tv/thecodaproject. Every week, the audio of these Mythologizing the Bible presentations is released as a podcast. You can find both the podcast and the occasional video versions of the presentations at thecodaproject.com. CODA stands for Creating Our Divine Alignment. When we learn to align our words and actions with our core values, that alignment feels absolutely exquisite. It feels divine. But it's a divine alignment that doesn't require belief in the supernatural. It's a divine alignment we have the ability to create for ourselves. To learn more, to subscribe to my mailing list, and to keep up on everything I'm doing with the Coda Project, please visit thecodaproject.com.